So welcome back to the debate here on France 24. Now, deplorable. It was the word used by Israel to describe Sweden's decision today to officially recognise a Palestinian state. Although 135 countries have already recognised Palestine, Sweden, the first large Western European country to do so. Now, if you're just tuning into the debate, we've already been discussing the violence in Jerusalem today following a double shooting there. We're going to broaden the topic now to talk about Sweden's decision and the ramifications of that. Joining us from Brussels for today's debate is Mark Otter, who was the EU's special representative to the Middle East up until February 2011. Here on set with me is Gil Mihaly, who's an Israeli who's editor-in-chief of Causa. Majid Messaoudine, who's a member of the Front de Gauche here in France and president of Observers in Palestine. And Julien Taron is a political scientist and advisor, specialist in the Middle East at the University of Versailles. Thanks very much to all of you for coming in. First, though, let's get this report on Sweden's actions.
Sweden, the first major European country to officially recognize the state of Palestine.
We believe that, first of all, the legal requirements are fulfilled. There is a people, there is a territory, and there is a government. We also believe that now is the right time to take a decision on recognition because of the situation on the ground, to make the parties less unequal.
Stockholm's announcement comes during increased tensions over Israel's plans to build some 1,000 housing units on occupied land, and it's drawn praise from Palestinian officials.
We thank the government and the people of Sweden for this recognition. We also thank them for this brave decision, which was made despite much pressure.
Meanwhile, Tel Aviv was quick to condemn Sweden, which brings to 135 the number of countries worldwide that recognize Palestine.
Relations in the Middle East are a lot more complex than the self-assembly furniture of IKEA. This is a miserable decision that strengthens the extremist elements.
Israel fears that the move could lead other European countries to follow suit. They say that this would undermine the ongoing negotiation process.
Well, let's ask Majid Messaoudine, member of Front de Gauche here in France, Paris president, Observers in Palestine. Do you think this is the right move by Sweden?
I don't know if it's the right move, but I think it's a good news. I feel Swedish today, and I'm very glad, as I was English when the British Parliament voted in the same way a few days ago. I think that these recognitions are more than symbolic. That they really show that some countries understand what's happening on the ground, and that Israel is just earning time by constructing and building settlements, by isolating the Palestinians from Jerusalem, from the Palestinians from the West Bank and from Gaza, and that the only solution is the international support for the creation of the Palestinian state. All what we see on the ground and all the declarations of the Israeli members, the Israeli government, show that they don't want a Palestinian state to be created. They do whatever they can to prevent a Palestinian state from existing. So I think that what Sweden did today is a great news, and it's a step, but it's not enough. And I think that it shows the cowardice of the other governments, as France, for example, that by now refuses to recognize the Palestine as a state.
Gil Mihaly,
and I
how
think
would you
we
respond?
have a lot of job to do.
There is the symbolic dimension, the diplomatic dimension, which I find less interesting than the geostrategic dimension of the question. The problem today on the Israeli side is that when Israelis look at the last 15 years of their relations with their neighbors, and when they look at the Middle East, which is falling apart around them, there is no majority in the Israeli public today, and there's no majority in the Israeli decision-making elite to move forward to an independent Palestinian state. Because the consensus in Israel is that in a few years this will become like Lebanon or like Gaza, and whatever paper they will sign, they will be able to fire rockets on Tel Aviv, on the only big Israeli airport, and on the seaports of Israel. They just don't believe that a Palestinian state will be able to give Israel the minimum level of security that it needs. They just don't believe. After Israel withdrew from Lebanon and Israel withdrew from Gaza, no one believes that the Palestinians can deliver the goods.
But why does having an official state actually make any difference to that?
Because this is what I said, that there is if it was only call them a state, like they said, let's say we won and go back home. If it was only giving them the name state and then leave, there's no problem. Leave the situation as it is, there's no problem. The problem is, it's just the same argument with you let the Jews pray today on one corner of Temple Mount, and tomorrow they will go to raise the mosques and build a temple. They will start, probably, this is what I would do in their place, they will start by reclaiming the name of the state, and then to fill this empty box with content. And today, when Israeli sees what's happened, imagine that Israel would have withdrawn from the Golan Heights 20 years ago. What would we have today?
But the trouble for Israel is, though, that gradually, one by one, not just countries but organisations as well, are starting to recognise Palestine as a free state. And does that not mean that Israel's reputation is gradually being diminished because of it?
Israel is paying a very high price for its policy. But according to the majority of Israelis today, and according to the Israeli government, the choice is between diabetes and cancer. It's not between being 20 in good health and being 70 in bad health. And they chose diabetes, in a way. They say, we can be nice to the Europeans, and we will withdraw from wherever we withdraw, and we will dismantle settlements like we did before in 2005 in Gaza and in 1982 in the Sinai. Look at the Sinai today. Israel withdrew from the Sinai. And the Egyptian state is not the Palestinian state. And still, Egypt is unable to control the Sinai. Egypt had to stop delivering gas to Israel because it doesn't control the Sinai. A band of terrorists...
Israel controls Jerusalem, and well, there's clashes nowadays, so you can say that Israeli presence is not the answer neither.
But Israel doesn't shoot rockets on Ramallah.
What do Palestinian people want? What do they want?
No, I know.
What do they want? What do the Palestinian people, what does it want?
I know what...
They want a Palestinian state on 22%
yes.
of the historical Palestine. Even that, Israel refuses to give them to...
What I'm saying is that...
You can't say that they will start from the state and then they will ask for more.
No,
you can't say that.
No, I'm not talking about the justice or the history. The consensus today in Israel is that the Palestinian state means in 2, 3, or 5 years rockets on Ben Gurion Airport.
You can't say
that if you withdraw from the West Bank, you'll have Gaza 30 kilometers from Ben Gurion. This is what the Israeli government.
Remind us the way they withdrew from Gaza. Remind us the way they withdrew from Gaza.
Israel, it's not only about Gaza. Israel withdrew from the Sinai in a...
I'm talking about Gaza.
Israel withdrew from the Sinai in a mutual agreed contract, peace agreement.
It was not mutual for Gaza.
But I'm saying even when it's mutual, almost no Arab states except Jordan can keep its promises.
But surely the situation now...
The Lebanese government doesn't control Hezbollah.
But the situation now has come to a stage, hasn't it? If I can just interrupt. The situation now has come to such a state, though, that this kind of deadlock has been going on for so long now. I mean, just reading one tweet here coming in from Ali Omar. Palestine must be freed and occupation must end. It's the first step to create a peaceful environment. I mean, that phrase, it's the first step to create a peaceful environment. Surely it's the only way to go now, because otherwise this situation is just going to carry on or potentially get worse in the short term, if not in the long term.
This is actually, whether we start with the chicken or with the egg, it's a good question. It might be even true. The question is, if you are a government and you have to take the risk, you say, okay, let's take the risk, but if you lose everything. Because you can't say, okay, you have an agreement, and if Palestinians will not keep the side of the agreement, you can always occupy. No, it doesn't go. It doesn't work like that.
But isn't Israel losing
the whole international
everything already?
community will be on Israel's back in 3 seconds. There are enough people who think that even 48 is occupation, not 67. 48. Some people
Not
even
the
think
Palestinian
that
leaders. Not the
no.
Palestinian
But
leaders.
what I'm saying that the Israel will not have the support of the international community if it makes the wrong choice. This is even today.
Freedom is always the right choice. Freedom is always the right choice. You must give the Palestinians their freedom. And Israel must leave.
Let's speak to Marcotte. He used to be the EU Special Representative to the Middle East up until fairly recently. Mark, again, hearing some very strong opinions there on both sides. I mean, does it surprise you that Sweden has become the latest country to do this? And do you expect that there will be more in the future?
Well, what happened with Sweden, what happened in the British Parliament and what happened in other parliaments is clearly done under pressure of public opinion in Europe. The last episode of war in Gaza has created an enormous wave of opinion, public opinion against the suffering of the Palestinians. And I have never seen so many Palestinian flags in my own town, Brussels, as at that time. So I think democratic governments respond to the pressure of their public opinion. On the other hand, I don't think that that there was much progress by the recognition of the Palestinian state many years ago. We're not further away, so it's a political gesture. But we still cannot make the economy of a negotiated solution. And what I want to say also is that everybody has his opinion poll to show whether its public opinion supports or doesn't support the two-state solution. What is clear is that the status quo is unacceptable and that there will be rockets on Ben Gurion if there is no solution to the issue of the creation of the Palestinian state nevertheless. And if there is no will to create a Palestinian state, then the option for Israel is to accept to give Palestinians democratic rights, equal rights in a state that goes from the Mediterranean to the Jordan.
Do you agree with that,
if
Julian?
there is no movement, that is inevitably what will happen under the pressure of the international community, like it happened with South Africa.
Yes, well, I completely agree, and I think that the comparison with South Africa, well, it's not exactly the same, of course, because there's no former state another state in South Africa. But regarding to the strategic situation of Israel and the isolation it faces, well, I completely agree, and I think that they are going really forward to that. And I think that actually this strategy is inefficient in the interest of Israel. Well, the idea that it's not just statu quo. The statu quo goes with, every 6 months, more and more settlements. In West Bank, what actually far-right Jews or religious think they are actually Judea and Samaria. They call it like that. They don't call it like occupied land. They call that liberated land. I've spoke to one once, and he told me like, actually, our plan, the plan of our country, is the Bible. So they do not found their legitimacy on international law or on strategic interest. It's a kind of mythical Israel that they want to create. Their perfect plan, I mean, a specific political part of Israeli political scene, is actually to say that, well, we would like to let Gaza out of it because Gaza was not in the Hebrew state, in Hebrew kingdom. But, well, Judea and Samaria were. So we have to be there. And every settlement that you put there is actually a step backward toward a Palestinian state, free state. So
would that
this
be a-
question, and Sweden just said, actually, well, we don't believe that you really are convinced that you want to go toward a free a Palestinian state. We think that you say that, and the negotiations do not work since almost like 20 years now. So now we decided to go forward with a very symbolic gesture.
Would that be one way, perhaps, for Israel to begin to get public opinion back on its side, for example, by stopping these settlements, do you think?
No, because the Israeli population is pretty much backing the Israeli government, and sometimes even backing more Lieberman or Naftali Bennett, like the hardliners of the government, more than Benjamin Netanyahu. So he really wants to be tough on this issue, but so I don't see a particular reason, except like being from hawks to doves, to switch actually the strategy.
Gil Mahaley, do you not think if Israel was to stop some of its settlement building, that it would at least show in some ways that they were trying to aim for a peaceful situation here? Absolutely. I'm against the settlement strategy. I think it's even if Israel has valid security arguments and interests, I think that the settlements are counterproductive. I think that even if you say we can't trust you now, you have to leave kind of a future open to the Palestinians. What I'm just trying to say that it is not only a technical question of law, it's also a very profound political question, and I think that the Palestinians made a mistake, or rather, they did it on purpose. At least the Hamas, not to use the 2005 withdrawal from Gaza, which was a very imperfect solution, but it had the advantage of dismantling settlements, which was very difficult to do in Israel. 2005. Yeah. 2005. There was 8,000 people. It was a mini rehearsal for what the Israeli government was planning to do in the West Bank. And at one point, at the request of the Americans, Ariel Sharon added to the withdrawal 3 settlements from the north of the West Bank to show that he sees the linkage between the two. It didn't work, and I don't think it was Israel's fault that it didn't work. And you have to understand, people, voters, they think in simple matter. They say, we withdrew from Gaza, we dismantled settlements, what did we get in return?
But how?
And the Palestinians say, you withdrew because it was too expensive. Yeah. Okay, so we make peace only if we fall in love with our enemies? Of course, you make peace because it's your interest to make peace. So what Israelis considered to be a very important but imperfect gesture in 2005 was answered by violence. So now they are very difficult to convince that what didn't work in Gaza will work in the West Bank.
But
and this is
was going with the blockade as well. I mean, you can't.
No. 2005, no.
No, I mean
Israel withdrew in August 2005, and Hamas won the election 6 months later.
Why?
And the first thing that the Hamas launched,
but why,
was the operation
but why did they
create
win
a tunnel
elections?
in order to kidnap Shalit in
it was in order to fight the blockade. That's why they created these tunnels to survive. Because
I'm talking about. I'm not talking about.
2008. They won in 2008.
I'm not talking about. I'm talking about.
You must remind us.
The tunnel in 2006 was into Israeli territory in order to make a commando operation in Israel.
How Israel withdrew from Gaza? Not with the Palestinian Authority. It was not mutual. They just left.
I said it
left it.
I said it
and
was,
they did not talk about.
I said it was an imperfect solution.
Yes, that's why. That's why what happened.
When
violence is the result of the occupation.
When Israel tried in a very imperfect way to do a very strong, even symbolic gesture, because settlements are in the heart of the situation. Palestinians could have greeted it in many ways.
Hamas chose the worst possible way.
OK, well, let's just ask Mark Ott. He's EU's special representative to the Middle East, was until reasonably recently. Mark, I mean, just listening once again to all those different discussions, I mean, it does show, doesn't it, those polarised different opinions in the Middle East. Do you think there's a way forward for the Palestinians and for Israel to find a way for peace, bearing in mind the difference and the polarised situation, some would say as well, between Benjamin Netanyahu and Barack Obama?
Well, I mean, the rift between Israel and the United States is a complicating factor. It's certainly not, I would say, very clever for Israel to damage their relations with the United States, who are their strongest support. But beyond that, I think there's been times where it looked like it was possible. Oslo showed it was possible for Israelis and Palestinians to agree on a template for building mutual trust and then go on in building institutions of a state of Palestine that would live in peace alongside Israel. But things have changed a lot. I think what we see in the region is reflected in Israel and Palestine, is radicalization of societies, radicalization of the political field. As I said, I don't know if it was heard before I was interrupted, but I think for Israel, it's still the best choice, because the alternative that will increasingly then be supported by the international community is then to give Palestinians equal rights in the state of Israel, and Israel becoming a binational state. That has always been the motivation of a lot of politicians in Israel to go for a two-state solution, but time is running out, and the status quo is going to become more and more dangerous and bring more violence, and therefore move further in time the possibility to sit down again and to negotiate.
Mark, thanks very much. We're going to have to leave it there because we're out of time. But Mark Ott, thank you very much for joining us there from Brussels. Also, Gil Mehaley and Majid Messaouddin and Julien Theron. Thanks very much to all my guests for coming in. Now it's time for today's Media Watch. So carrying on the theme, Mahala Mahirdine joining us here on set. We began the debate a little bit earlier on discussing the developments in Jerusalem, didn't we, Hala? What's been the reaction online to that?
Well, certainly there has been a lot of despair being expressed when you take aside the two polar opposite views supporting one side or another. General comment has tended towards just despair that the cycle keeps repeating. This one journalist, Peter Jukes, has tweeted, Mesopotamia in flames, Russia at war with a neighbour. All that's needed now is a huge conflict in Jerusalem, muttered Beelzebub. So this is just history repeating, and it seems a descent into a terrible situation. And of course, with images like these being tweeted throughout the day, you can understand why this view is prevalent. And we do understand that the site is due to be reopened. However, as comments is now starting to come out, the consensus is there's no good guys at all in this situation. There really does need to be discussion and concessions from both sides. Of course, we are seeing some of those concessions bit by bit starting to come through, even just in anecdotal situations. This is an example of graffiti sprayed on the wall of a school in the morning, and then later on we had another tweet coming up saying in a bilingual school that's changed death to Arabs to love, friendship and partnership. So small glimmers there, but when you're looking for these glimmers, it shows you just how dire the situation is.
Sure, and also we were discussing in the last half hour Sweden recognising Palestine as a state. How much calm and tolerance are we seeing online?
Well, it's, of course, again, you've got the two polar opposite views. It's certainly something which has been kicking up quite a lot of comments. Of course, the views saying, this is Sweden is now supporting Hamas, supporting terrorists. We've got images such as these popping up. But we also have a lot of people focusing on the comments made by the Israeli, the diplomat there, saying the Middle East is more complicated than IKEA furniture. That's provoking some more light-hearted and humorous numerous responses. Obviously, the Israeli First Minister's never bought a piece of IKEA furniture that will break you as a person. He's been summoned, they've summoned the Swedish ambassador. He's been made to sit on an IKEA chair in this cartoon.
This is the low chair where the Turkish ambassador was seated. This is the context.
Oh, and then another person, of course, and then we're getting into this is you know a road map done in the style of IKEA furniture. So humorous tweets coming out to illustrate a very serious situation.
OK, well, I think the debate tonight has shown just how difficult it is really to fix the Middle East solution, shall we say, trying to lighten the mood at the end of it anyway. Thanks again to my guests. Thanks to Hello as well. More news coming up very shortly here on France 24. Do stay with us.
The Observer's Direct.
Goma lies along the eastern border of the Democratic Republic of Congo. It's as far from the capital as you can get. In this war-torn and poverty-stricken part of the country, mental disorder has become a major problem. And with so few psychiatrists and no infrastructure to help, the mentally ill are left to fend for themselves. Accompanied by our observer Charlie Kasarika, our crew went to Goma to investigate this humanitarian disaster.
The Observer's Direct on France 24 and France24.com.